Hi, and welcome to Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. I'm Dave Aizer, and thank you so much for hanging out with me and spending a little time learning more about public speaking. My guest today is Magalie Rene, a transformational executive coach, a motivational speaker, and a CEO who instills courage and compassion in organizations, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. She's a renowned transformational facilitator, and she believes the future of work is centered around compassionate communication. To that end, she uses her expertise to create experimental, interactive, and thought provoking workshops to address leadership, well being, and belonging. I'm really looking forward to chatting with her about how important dynamic communication is in the workspace. And I'm sure that can help all of us as we strive to be better coworkers and colleagues. So get set, because here comes another great episode of Speechcast right now.
This is Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. Here's national TV host, public speaking and media coach, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author, Dave Aizer.
Magalie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing so well. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So you're across the country from me, but your energy is coming through 3,000 miles away. I'm feeling it right now. This is great.
I love that. I've been told.
It's terrific. And I wish the people listening could feel it. But of course, we are also putting this on YouTube so they can see it. So many things I want to ask you about what you do. And what's really cool about this conversation is that in the entirety of this podcast, I've not interviewed anybody like you. So this is going to be a different perspective, which I'm so excited about.
Well,
so
I hope I can live up to it.
I know. Now I just put a ton of pressure on you. So
no pressure.
None at all. Let's start with this. What is compassionate leadership? What does that mean to you?
What is compassionate leadership? It's basically the type of leadership that the world and society, and certainly our culture in the United States, and I really do think everywhere, is calling for right now. It's a type of leadership that supports ourselves, right? It supports us in feeling like we have mastered ourselves. We are able to navigate the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. We have self-mastery over our energy, our mindset, our mental health, right? And we become a space through that compassion for self for other people, to lead others in a way that makes them feel that they matter.
Oh,
it's
I love that.
modeling, but that's really
I love it, because to be a great leader, by your definition, you first have to be right with yourself. It's not just showing up to the workplace or wherever else you're leading people and giving a great speech, because obviously we're going to talk about communications here. It's not just that. You have to be squared with who you are and feel good about that first, right?
100%. Otherwise, you really won't be. So I always say, to be an effective leader, right? We're talking about during a pandemic, during a racial awakening, during all of these trials and tribulations that we've all been going through together collectively since 2020. To be an effective leader now, you have to be in a grounded space, right? Mentally, so that you're not triggered by everything. So you've got to be able to master yourself so that you can really hold space for other people and lead them effectively. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say to that, if there ever were a time for leadership, it is now, and it was this past year. People were thirsty for positivity, for guidance, to be inspired. So I think to your point, this is where real leaders can showcase and step up, right?
100%, definitely. It's been such a challenging time, but also a big opportunity. Leaders see obstacles as opportunities, and it certainly has been an opportunity for different types of leaders to step forward and shift the narrative. Because I think when we have this level of stress and uncertainty, we immediately, naturally, we've got like negativity bias, right? Scientifically speaking, that's how our brains work. But we're naturally inclined to be really afraid, really frustrated, angry. Those are kind of the feelings that bubble up, stress. And so it does take a different level of leadership skills to support people and move them out of that.
So when you work with leaders or people aspiring to be leaders, by the way, I will get to this question in a second. Something just popped into my head, stream of consciousness. So let me pivot and ask you this.
I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, why not? It's my podcast. I'll do what I want.
What you want.
Yeah, why not? Do you think that people are born leaders? Can they become leaders? Is it a combination of the two? How much of it is inherent? How much of it is learned?
I think I'm inclined to say it's a combination of the two, but I actually think that you can develop leadership skills. So I'm just going to go with that. I think anyone can become a leader in terms of leading many people. It's just about the desire. So you might not be inclined to, and that's kind of why I had that both and answer. You may not be inclined to, but I do believe also that everyone is a leader in their own right. So if you're a parent, if you're a mom, a dad, you're a leader in your household. I believe everyone is the author of their story, right? If you so choose, and you're the author of your story and you're leading in your life. So how do you want to lead yourself? So we're all leaders, I think.
Okay, well, there you go. That's pretty inspiring right there.
It.
That's it. Mic drop. So let's approach leadership from a communications perspective. When you work with people who lead companies, lead organizations,
Yep.
what do you tell them with regards to how they can inspire their coworkers? What are some things to say? What are some things not to say? How do you command a room, etc.?
So I'm gonna leave the command room for last because it's less about the show and it's more about really tapping into your authenticity, your authentic voice. And the way I share something, we may both say the same sentence, right? And the way I say it and the way you say it's going to be two different things. And it's much better to focus on what feels real and true for you than to focus on the showmanship of it. I think that's an added level that comes at the end. But I do want to focus, I want to hone in this moment on how do you inspire people? And I think that starts with learning what it is that inspires them, right? So it's less about, okay, I need to convince this person, I need to persuade this person, I need to inspire them, and more about coming from what is it, like learning, that curiosity, that desire to learn what it is that inspires someone, and then you can really inspire them because then you'll know how to. So curiosity is probably the first step of that, I'd say, before you're even communicating. And in the communication, so curiosity as communication is really questions, right? So being willing to ask, being willing to learn, and specifically asking about what their vision is. So as a leader of a team, of a company, an organization, or whatever kind of leader you may be out there listening, I think you've got to know what your vision is. But in order to really persuade someone or bring them over to understanding you, seeing your point of view or your perspective, you've got to find the place where their vision and your vision connects. So I think that's a skill, a real talent that the most effective compassionate leaders have honed.
It's so interesting because all of the different facets of communication are so interrelated. So this is very similar to the advice that I would give an aspiring television host. When I would say to them, the first thing you want to do is be a listener. You have your questions prepared for your interview. You ask your first question. You can do one of two things. You can drop your head down and look at your note card and get ready for the second question, or you can just be present and you can listen and you can ascertain what this person is inspired by, what motivates them, and then you can just have a conversation. So really, that's so fascinating to me that great communication skills are ubiquitous across multiple platforms.
100%. This is all of these effective communication, compassionate leadership, they blend together, certainly. And I love what you just said about listening, because it makes me think of listening to the listening. You're listening for what's not being said, right? And when you really start to hone your communication skills and being able to land an interview or be a really amazing TV host like yourself, I'm calling that in. Of course, I want to be one as well. One day, someday. But all of those skills come down to being present and listening, which is a big portion of communications. It's 95% of communications. I think it's 93 or 95% of communications isn't verbal. Right? It's all of those other talents and skills that you're bringing to the table. So listening certainly is one of them.
Do you work with nonverbals when you talk to your leaders with regards to engaging people in the eyes and things like that? Does that come up?
Absolutely. I think especially in the virtual space, which I know that you and I had talked about this, you get to make people feel connected. So what does it mean to feel connected, right? I'm using my hands. And I don't want to be flailing, but I do want to be engaged, and I want to show through my body that I'm interested, that I'm present with you. I might lean into the camera. I might really look at like straight into the camera and make people feel what I'm saying more so than just hear it. So definitely those nonverbals are very important.
And it worked, by the way, because when you did that, I perked up in my chair and I was like, oh, okay, next level of communication. But it has been as if people didn't have enough to deal with the events of 2020. Now, from a business standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, they have to do all of this via a video conferencing platform that most of them had little to no experience doing. It's pretty different. You're not in the same room as people. So how much of your work over the past year has been everything you just said, but for this Zoom-related video conferencing format?
All of it. I was going to say 99%, but I think it's 99.99999% of it has been in this format. Definitely keeping safe through the pandemic. But I think I also want to share the mindset portion of it. I believe really deeply that connection can be felt through any medium. And I mean a deep level of connection that could very well have someone be vulnerable, share vulnerably, show themselves emotionally. They might cry, might really feel something deeply. I think that can happen through any medium. It can happen on the phone. It can happen in real life, and it can happen on social media, and it can even happen on a Zoom call. It's much less about the mechanism and much more about your ability to tap into human experience, to connect with someone on a deeper level. And that comes from being authentic. That comes from really honing your ability to connect, right? To be you, and to be able to be willing to meet someone where they are.
Do you think that some leaders in a corporate workspace need permission to be vulnerable, to admit they don't know everything, to be human? Because I know that I've worked for and with people who have this aura of I am the boss. I therefore must have every answer. And if I don't have the answer, I'm just going to lie about having the answer. But I think that people probably need to know that it's okay to not have every answer to every question.
Yeah, I think we're in this moment in the world right now where I don't know that anybody has any answers about anything. And that's why I always say the kind of leadership that's gotten us this far won't get us where we need to go from here forward. So certainly it's 100, like you just keep hitting the nail on the head, right?
I looked at the notes ahead of time.
Did you prepare for this? I can't tell. But yeah, for sure. I think compassionate leaders are humans. They're human first. And that's what makes you an effective manager. I train managers so often, and even executives, right? C-suite, high-level executives, that they've been taught and conditioned that it's perfection. It's about perfection. Like leadership is about perfection, but rather in this moment, leadership is actually about authenticity, and authenticity is what inspires. You being real about what you do or do not know doesn't diminish your leadership. If anything, it impacts it in the most positive way. It's admirable when someone is strong enough in their values, their sense of self, their belief system, they're self-assured enough to be able to say, I don't know that, but you know what? I'm with you. We're going to figure this out together. I'm going to go back, get these answers, and we're going to work. It might be messy. It might not be perfect, but we're going to learn and grow and develop together. That's a powerful leader.
When you do roundtables and retreats, I know this is part of what you do in your program. You foster that kind of company-wide communication. What do you hope that the company members get out of that? What is a successful roundtable, a successful retreat? What does that look like?
Oh, this is so juicy. Well, so what it looks like is finding out what it is they think is a successful roundtable and a successful retreat, right? Because no, it's not one size fits all. I think every company comes with their own culture, with their own values, with their own vision, and whatever we're going to create in any kind of company-wide or any kind of work program, that I deliver, that needs to really be, we need to dial that into the actual company itself, to the people that will be involved. But broad strokes wise, I think I'll give you this example. One of the best pieces, I have two pieces of feedback that I got, and this was more powerful than most everything else that came data wise, was this. I had one person say, I can't wait to get home and use this with my kid. That was like phenomenal, because this kind of work, right? Being a compassionate leader, developing these types of skills, these softer skills. I hate calling them soft skills. I think they're essential skills. So developing essential skills, they don't only work in the workplace and with your colleagues and your independent contributors and with your managers and your, it works in your life, right? We need to be aligned. The way that you do one thing is the way you do everything. So that was a great piece of feedback. And the second was, we used your framework to discuss the election as a company. That was amazing. This is the 2020 election. I mean, I'm losing track of time at this point, but the 2020 elections. So many different people coming from so many different perspectives at one company getting together and being able to have a civilized conversation about the 2020 election is unprecedented. So that's what effective communication and compassionate leadership can create.
I'll tell you what, you should get a Nobel Prize for that.
I know. I'm trying to tell them.
If you could get a whole bunch of people to sit around and talk about the 2020 election without hurling furniture and screaming obscenities at each other, that's off.
Without slamming down their computers on the Zoom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hats off. So we've talked about communication from a leadership perspective. I'm curious, for an employee perspective, do you have any advice for how somebody can feel empowered to approach their leadership about, I don't know, whether it's a raise or just a creative idea, just, taking that risk, putting themselves out there to knock on that door?
Yeah, I think this is about self-advocacy and agency. As employees, we can sometimes often forget. It's easy to forget, and I've been in that position where we forget that we have power. We have a lot of power, and no one's forcing us, even though it's our financial livelihood. You have options. It might be to go to a job that you don't want. And I'm obviously talking about people in the workplace. And so there is some privilege that comes with that. I am well aware of that. Not everyone has the options that I'm talking about, but I'm really talking to people that are in the workforce. You've got advocacy and you've got agency. You have the power to self-advocate and you have agency. So don't be afraid to ask the question. And you don't need to make demands to have boundaries and to exhibit powerful communication skills. You can ask a very clear question, but before you go in, know what it is you want for yourself. So it's a mindset shift. It's also being very clear on your intention and goal, and have a plan B. If the answer isn't what you want it to be, what are you going to do then? And if you do have other options that you create for yourself, even if it's, well, if I don't hear what I want to hear, then I'm going to spend the next 4, 5, 6 months, a year looking for my next opportunity. You'll go into that conversation, that's a challenging, uncomfortable conversation, with a lot more empowerment than if you didn't have a plan, because you know that you have options. And we always do. And I think it's very easy to forget that of late, that we have choice and we have power and we have the power of agency.
Yeah, you just want to come from a position of strength. If it's the more authentic the strength, the better. Do you how much preparation do you have people put into what they're going to say? Because I said earlier something about owning the room, and you said it's not really that, it's more about being authentic. So I'm wondering if you're speaking with a CEO who's going to address a company, do you tell them to write a speech and rehearse the speech? Do you say just go in there and speak from the heart, or is there a level in between?
I think there's a level in between. I believe, I'm trying to think of that quote, but it's an Oprah quote. And she says, luck is preparation and timing, when preparation and timing meets, or something like that. I'm probably butchering the quote, but it's that.
Fine. She's Oprah. She'll get over it.
Fine. She doesn't mind. She doesn't mind.
Care.
But all that to say, you've got to prepare. Again, being a compassionate leader is still in the word, and leaders prepare. Leaders are on their game. Leaders do the work, right? They put in the effort, the time. They write the speech, but the magic comes in when you've practiced and honed your ability to be yourself and to be authentic and to be present, which you mentioned earlier today, right? When you're talking about TV hosting or being in an interview, being present. And that all is going to come together so divinely when you get out on a stage and you need to connect heart to heart with someone. You're going to notice what the energy of the room is, right? As you start your speech, and you might know exactly where you need to break it up to put in a joke, to diffuse tension. Like that you can only make those choices if you've A, prepared and rehearsed, and if you B, are present enough to feel and notice what's going on in the space around you with the people. So listening to the listening, right? So yeah, I think it's both.
And I would add a C to that, which is something you said earlier. If you know your people, if you've spoken with them in the past and really gotten to know what they're interested in, what they're motivated by, which is everything you said earlier, that's going to help you also. That's when you're going to know, when you're going down this train of thought, you're going to know who that's going to connect with. And if it's not going to connect, you're just going to go somewhere else. What an absolute pleasure. You're so fascinating. Thank you so much for being on the show. Loved having you. And
thank you, Dave.
It's my pleasure. If people want to learn more about you, how do they do it?
They can head to, I think Instagram's probably the easiest, but you can find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can also find me on my website. So on Instagram, it's Magalie_Rene. That's MAGALIE_RENE. Everything else is MagalieRené.com. So that's my website. LinkedIn, same name, Magalie Rene. So looking forward to learning more about what you all are up to, and feel free to follow me, message me. I definitely respond. It'll take me some time, but I am present with everybody that comes into my inbox. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. It was great to be here. I loved this.
Thank you so much, Magalie. I enjoyed chatting with her, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it as well. If you did like this episode, please feel free to subscribe and share it with any of your buddies. And if you could leave us a rating and a review, I would really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. Go out there and give a speech or host a podcast or even be on TV. And I'll see you again next week for another brand new episode of Speechcast.